Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Thrive Careers podcast. I am your wonderful host, Olajumoke Fatoki, and I'm so excited to be back here with you today. On this episode, we are going to be focusing on the 5 good student trap that stall careers. And to lead us in that conversation is someone who needs no introduction. I said she needs no introduction because she's been here before. And if you've been a listener of this show, you would know that we had a great time the last time she was here. As a matter of fact, that episode had one of the highest downloads. And I'm so excited that we have her back, at this time to share more knowledge, and more insights with our listeners. Let me just hear from you. How have you been since the last time you've been here?
Well, thank you so much for having me back. I'm so excited to be here. This is always such a pleasure. And I've been great. I've been talking to so many people about interviews and setting up a strong foundation now that it is graduation time. So I know we're going to dig into how young people can really make a huge impact as they're entering their first jobs.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I know I said you need no introduction, but for the purpose of those who might be joining us for the first time, do you want to quickly introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll start the ball rolling from there.
Yes. So my current role is a COO at a digital marketing agency. And I've been interviewing and hiring people for the past 12 years. And I realized that there's so much based on what I see now and my career coming up through that I could help young people, post grads, navigate the first 3 years out of college. And so we really focus on career, cash, and confidence in everything that we talk about.
Amazing. I'm a firm believer that nobody or no one recovers from a good start. All right. So, and that's why I believe that this conversation is very important before they hit the job market. They know what is expected of them, and they can thrive, which is one of our goals on this show. So thank you so much, Brianne. We're so excited to have you again. I know I've said that a lot of times, but that's just what it is.
I'm
Awesome.
excited too.
Awesome. So, Brianne, before we get into the frameworks, and I know we have all of that prepared for today, but you, as someone who has been hiring and coaching for over a decade now, when did you first notice that the women who looked the most prepared on paper were the ones struggling the most in the workplace?
Yeah. So, and I was one of them. I always wanted straight A's. That's what I always wanted. And I was very hard on myself getting good grades in school. And now that I'm running a company and seeing these young people in the workplace, I notice that they fall into 2 camps. One camp is people have their head down, they work really hard, they take on every bit of work that's given to them and more, and they're very quiet. So what happens is their career does not grow as fast as somebody who is loud or visible in the workplace. And then the other camp are these young women, you get them on a one-to-one call, and they are so anxious. They have so much anxiety. They think, why am I not doing this the right way? Or I felt like I was doing it the right way. Why isn't it working out? So I took the opportunity to look back and think, why is this happening? And I came up with 5 reasons. I know we're going to get into those.
Awesome. I love that background. And we really need to be able to demystify that because a lot of people are actually caught up in that trap. So let's talk about these 5 good students habits that you have identified. So walk us through it. What does that habit, what are those habits, and why are high achieving women the most vulnerable to them?
Okay, so I want you to think back to when you were in school and all the habits that you had. The first one is trying to be perfect, right? You write a paper, you don't want any red marks on it, right? You want it to be perfect. In math class, you wanted to make sure that you got all of the answers perfect. But in work, it doesn't translate. If you are waiting for everything to be perfect before you send it, before you say it, you are going to fall behind all of your peers. So that perfectionism is actually holding you back. You need to send the email before you feel ready. You need to raise your hand and say something at those meetings before you feel that it is perfect. So that is number one, perfectionism. All right. The second habit is waiting to be called on, right? We all raised our hand for 16 years in school and we waited to be called on. At work, if nobody calls on people with their hands up, right? So you need to realize if you are invited into a meeting, if you are invited to have a seat at the table, you have a responsibility to use your voice. It is not about raising your hand. It is about speaking up when you have a thought, when you have an idea, when you don't disagree with the direction things are going. You need to start speaking up and you cannot wait to be called on. The third habit is called extra credit mindset. We all wanted extra credit, right? If you had a B, you wanted extra credit to try and get up to that A. At work, this looks like taking on all of that extra work that's coming your way that doesn't actually align with the outcome or the impact of the company. So what do I mean by that? You are just taking on to-dos and checking things off. People are asking you to do things that don't really move the needle, that you are not going to be rewarded for. So that might be actual work that's coming in that's kind of like busy work, or it could be things that women in particular seem to get cornered into doing. So things like cleaning up the community kitchen after everybody has used it, right? If you work in an office, or planning the Christmas party or the holiday party. Those things, if you enjoy doing them, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but if you are taking them on in hopes of being more visible at work, you're actually just taking on work that's not going to be impactful and nobody's going to reward you for. So it feels like you're getting extra credit, but it's not helping you in any way. All right. Number 4 is approval addiction. Think about this. You needed your teacher, your professor's approval on everything, right? Your test, your papers, all of the work that you did, you got approval on. At work, this is a really hard one to adjust to, but there's just not a lot of approval coming in. Your manager doesn't seek you out to say, good job on everything, right? So that's a really hard one to overcome when you are kind of this really good student and you're coming into the workforce. You're expecting someone to tap you on or pat you on the back and say, great job. It just doesn't come, and you may not get feedback. This is not ideal, but in some workplaces, you may not get feedback until your yearly review. And that is a real shame. So you need to not let your confidence be reliant on getting that feedback. You need to go seek it out for yourself, and you need to make sure that you are clear on what you should be delivering at work. And the final habit is agreeability. And you might be asking, wait, I'm not supposed to be agreeable at work? Okay, all right. I'm not saying that you should be hard to work with, but what I am saying is that you should be speaking up specifically when you don't disagree with something. So if you're constantly just saying, yep, I agree, I think that's what we should do, Sally over there is right, everybody's just going to look at you as doing their job and moving along, and you're very smooth to work with. But when it comes time for people to view you as a leader, to view you for a promotion, they're going to say, well, I've never really seen her lead or have an idea of her own. So you can't just say, I've always done really well in class projects, group projects, being agreeable, and I'm going to translate that to work. You need to make sure that if you have a different viewpoint, you are adding that to the pool of knowledge at work. Otherwise, they're just not going to see you in the right light. So those are the 5. It's perfectionism, waiting to be called on, the extra credit mindset, approval addiction, and agreeability.
Amazing, Brianne. I think those are wonderful. I can see myself in each of those, before I became who I am, right now. And like I said, because listeners are predominantly young people who are starting out in their careers, or making a pivot, I know that this is very, very important for them. So having said that, I want us to dive a bit further into at least 3 of these frameworks that you have, been able to highlight today. Each one of them is very important, I can tell you, but I want us to just dive into just 3, so that people can get the full knowledge and know how this applies to them and how they can get out of this. So, and I want us to start with that one that you call the extra credit thinking, because so go for it.
Yeah, I think that a lot of women find themselves wanting to make sure that a project goes smoothly, or every I is dotted and every T is crossed. They feel like if I'm not doing this, it won't be done right, or it won't get done on time, or so they're doing all of the work, and then when there's a colleague who's having a bit of an issue, they're saying, well, I'll help you, I will do it. Or, any of these scenarios that you find yourself in where you're accepting more work. And then what tends to happen is your boss, the people around you, start noticing that you're willing to do all of this work. So they're saying, hey, Brianne, can you do this tonight? And then what they're going to do is go get a more strategic project, a stretch project that's going to help them show up in a more visible way to leadership to get better results while you're working on this project that just didn't really need to be done tonight and could have been done by them, but you've taken it on and they're using that extra time to go showcase themselves and their skill sets that you also have, but you felt like you needed to do that groundwork first. So the biggest thing here is I want to be clear. I am not saying don't get your work done. If you are responsible for something, you need to do it, but do not take on extra work that is not going to showcase you in the brightest light. Save that time that you have for a valuable stretch project that's going to help you learn and it's going to help the people around you see your potential.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Now let's talk about perfectionism. And on this one, I want to bring out something that you posted recently about McKinsey and the new AI interview. All right. So for listeners who haven't seen this, McKinsey is now sitting candidates down with their proprietary AI tool and watching them solve business problems in real time. They are not testing for technical skills anymore. They're now testing how you think. So how does perfectionism set women up to fail exactly that kind of test?
Yeah, this is a sign of the times, really. So McKinsey is adding this layer to their interviews specifically for graduates to utilize their AI bots that they have within their company. And so it's what that means is it's essentially their own version of ChatGPT or Claude that they have created in-house. And so you may not have had access to this before. In interviews, you're already wound up, you're nervous, you're scared, and so you're trying to get all your answers perfect. And then they throw this bomb at you of, okay, now we're going to do this interaction with our AI that you may have never seen before. And people who have this mindset are going to be really, really perplexed on how they can do perfectly with this round of the interview. And what I want to say is McKinsey and anybody else that is doing this for interviews right now is not expecting you to be perfect. But that's what's going to happen. You're going to go in there and you're going to say, oh my gosh, I have to do this perfectly, but I'm not as technical as they think I should be. I'm going to get this wrong. And then it just goes down this spiral of perfectionism that is going to count you out before you even have a chance. So take a deep breath and realize, especially with something like AI, it is not about being perfect. It is about your ability to think through strategically on how to use the tool. That's all it is. It's a tool, and there's no perfect way to use it. But what you can understand is, okay, these are the elements they're looking for. They're looking at how do I think? How do I interact? How do I understand if this bot is lying to me? How do I call them out on that? Because I think that's where the perfectionism is going to happen. The AI is going to tell them a blatant lie, and they're going to be too nervous to push back. That is the time to dig in, realize that you don't need to be perfect, and push back and work through the logical, strategical self that you already have within you with this tool that they're giving to you. So it's just one of those things. It's brand new. Everybody is trying to figure it out, but please, please, please know you don't have to be perfect. And in fact, that may deter you from getting the job if you try to be.
Absolutely. I love that. Do not try to be perfect. What they are really looking out for is your thought process, and how you're able to, push back. I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, so let's look at the last one. And the last one here is people pleasing. And I know that a lot of people fall into this category. So what do you have to say?
Yes, this is
Yeah.
a tough one because you want people to like
Yeah.
you at work, right? But there is a difference between being invisible and being influential. So let's talk about that. If you are agreeing to everything, you kind of just become another yay at the table and you kind of become invisible, right? But the ideas that are always being put out aren't always right. They aren't always 100% fully baked. You have an opportunity to add to it. So you don't always have to say you're wrong. You could say, well, I love your idea, but how about if we build on it by doing this? Or have you ever considered doing it this way? And now what's happening is you're becoming influential, not invisible. You're becoming influential and still easy to work with, right? So that is something that you can really concentrate on, is making sure that you are adding your value piece instead of just constantly saying, yep, you're right, let's run with it, or sounds good. We don't want that. What we want is for you to be able to add your point of view onto it so that people can see that you're not afraid to speak up, that you can be influential. So when promotion time comes around, when the leadership talks are happening, you are at the front of that line.
Amazing. As you were explaining that, what came to my mind is like being a robot. I think a robot is the one you say, okay, do this, and then it just goes on without asking you questions. You don't want to come across as a robot, and that's why that piece is very critical. Thank you so much for helping to explain that and how people can actually put it to work, especially in the work scenario. Thank you so much. All right. So now we are moving to the segment 3 of this conversation, which is the way out. I know we touched on a bit,
Yes.
in bits and pieces on that as we're having this conversation, but we're going to be, focusing on that on this segment. So you've created the shift framework. So walk us through it. What does shift stand for, and where does someone start? What is the starting point? Yeah.
Yes. So we couldn't just tell you all of these bad habits without giving you a framework to change them, right? So that framework is called the shift framework. Okay, so let's break it down. It's 5 super, super easy steps. The first one is spot the pattern. So S is for spot the pattern. If you felt when we were talking about this, if you see yourself in any of those 5 habits that we discussed, yes, I am a perfectionist. You need to start spotting that habit while you are at work or while you are going through interviews, whatever it may be. You need to start just writing it down. Hey, this happened to me. You're just going to start being self-aware, understanding why something is happening, through your behaviors from the past 16 years of school or more, and just be aware of it. Okay, so that's it. Just S is for spot pattern. The H is for highlighting the cost. Now that you've written down a couple of these things, what does it actually cost you? So, for example, if you take on one of those extra credit things like planning the holiday party, what does that cost you? It's costing you your time that you could have been networking with leadership at your giant enterprise that you're working at now, or it's costing you time that you could have been working on a stretch project to enhance your AI skills, right? There is a cost for each one of those habits that you're doing, and you need to write it down now. So you've written down what actually habit you're showing, and then you need to write down what it cost you. Now, what's going to happen is you need to invert the role that you had at school. So that is the I, invert the role. So if you are saying, well, everything needs to be perfect before I send it, the inverse of that is send the email at 70%, right? I feel 70% confident about this, send it. If you want to be totally agreeable, that's what we've been learned or taught for working in group projects at school. Now, what you need to do is inverse that and say, I'm going to start adding value to whatever it is that is being discussed at the table. So you can now see what the habit is, what it cost me, and now you can write down the inverse of what you should be doing. So just flip it. Easy, right? If you don't know what to do, just flip it. All right. F is for find your stretch project. I've been talking about this a lot. The cost is keeping you from doing something to grow your career. So now you find your stretch project. It can be anything little. It could be something that's reaching out to, one of the C-level executives at your company to have a coffee chat. That's a huge stretch goal, but it's worth it. You should do it. It might just be sharing your idea with your manager for something that they've been doing for the past decade, but could be better. So it might just be sharing an idea. But whatever it is, push yourself outside of your comfort zone and find your stretch project. Okay. And then the last one is to track the response. So we are nothing without data, right? We need the data. And that's where we're going to start getting our receipts. We're going to start seeing the difference this is making in our daily lives at work. So it's that simple, right? You spot it, you highlight the cost, you inverse the rule, you take on your stretch project, and then you track the results.
Amazing. That's so impactful and very simple. That's the beauty of it. That's what I love. Exactly. I think that's what I love most about it. It's very simple, very day to day. And I think my personal favorite is the F, find your stretch project. Because as you were speaking, I was thinking about my life and I realized it was in those moments that I found my stretch projects, that I realized, my capabilities and the things that I could do. So thank you so much, Brianne, for that brilliant piece. I love it. And I love the simplicity of it. Thank you so much. All right. So moving forward, and before I let you go, because we're finally getting to the end of this, it's been exciting speaking with you. But before we let you go, so I have to ask about something else, because some of the women who might be listening to this show right now are, just graduating or, finding their next role or even their first role. So, you believe the most overlooked job search strategy isn't cold DMs or awkward networking. So what is it? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. This is how I got my dream role out of college. And I think that we tend to think our network is too small. So I know I said it, the dirty word networking. But like you said, I'm not talking about cold DMs or awkward networking events through your school or through, a job board or something like that. What I'm talking about is simply working the network that you already have. And most people think, oh, well, I talked to my parents and I talked to, this career counselor that I have. I don't have a network outside of that. But you could not be further from the truth. There are so many people already in your life that want to help you get a job, and you're just not thinking about them in that way. But think about this. Your dentist, your hairstylist, how many people do they talk to every day? So many people, right? Okay, then we've got your freshman college dorm room RA, the person that lived on your floor. We've got your sports coach. We've got your professors. We've got your friends' parents. I mean, that's just like 5 examples. But there are hundreds of people that you are not thinking of that are in your network. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean they have the job that you want. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying talk to them because they know hundreds of people. And what you need to do is simply just come up with a 2-sentence line. I am looking for a job in marketing. Do you know anybody I can speak to? That's it, right? So if you say that to your hairstylist, she's like, yeah, I know Patty down the street. She's in marketing. Or your friend's parents might work in an agency or something. There are so many people that want to help you that already know you, that will pick up the phone if you call them, and they are waiting and we just aren't even thinking about them. So do not forget about the network that you have already built in the past 20 years of your life, because they are so, so valuable. And that's, like I said, that's how I got my job. It was a family friend who I did some volunteer work for, and she was telling my name to her contacts in New York City. And that's how I got my first role. Now, did they hand me the job? No, you still have to go and you have to interview for it and you have to earn it. But that's the problem in the market right now, is people just aren't getting the interviews. So that's how you do it.
I love it. Work the network that you have already built. You don't need to start from trying to reach out to people who do not really know you. And that's what makes networking a bit awkward. But I really love this approach, and I think that's very insightful. Thank you so much for for sharing that with us. All right. So, and I know that you also have a freebie that you're going to be discussing right about once I put up the question. But before we get into that, I have one last question. So, if a young woman is listening to this on our graduation day, what's the one thing you want her to walk away with? And what do you want her to start doing differently from tomorrow?
Yeah, I want you to lead with confidence and curiosity, not your credentials. So those credentials are everything that you've built. I'm not saying that they aren't important, but in today's market, today's workforce, you have to rely on your confidence to make a difference and your curiosity to lead you in the right direction, to dive into things you're uncomfortable with, to learn more, to apply that as you're going through interviews, going through your first job. Don't just stay in your own little bubble where you're comfortable. Make sure that you are pushing yourself out there and not relying on your past, but more so on what you can provide for the future of yourself and the companies that you're
I love
working
that.
for.
Lead with confidence and curiosity. I think every keyword is super important. Number one, you're leading. Number two, with confidence. Three, with curiosity. It's super important. Thank you so much. All right. So, Brianne, where can people find you and how can they keep up with your work? And you can also take this time to tell us about the freebie that you have prepared for our listeners.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So that networking that I was talking about, all the people that you know, it's hard to think of them. So I put together what I'm calling the post-grad networking rubric, and it has 60 plus categories of people that you already know and already want to help you. And then it has a rating system. So you can put in all of these different people and then you can rate them on who you should reach out to first. It's super simple, but super impactful. I've heard such great things about people using this tool. It's my best one, I think. So you can go get that. It's at theindependencelab.com/networking. So go get that. I am at theindependencelab.com. That's where everything lives. You can sign up for my weekly newsletter there. We go deep into interviews, money management, confidence, all the things that we've been talking about. And then for daily updates, like you said, I am on LinkedIn. You can find me there, or TikTok. I am at Brianne Independence Lab.
Awesome. And we'll be sure to drop everything in the show notes for this episode. The links, the freebie, and everything would live on there as well. So thank you so much, Brianne, for joining us again. It's always a joy having you. Thank you so much. And to everyone listening to this episode, if this conversation hits something for you, be sure to share it with every high achieving woman you know in your life who needs to hear this. And that's how we build careers that we are most proud of and that doesn't trap us, which was the whole brain behind this episode. Thank you so much, Bria. Do you have any last words as we wrap up this?
Yeah, trust yourself. Trust yourself. That's what it comes down to. Don't let that go away. Trust yourself. But thank you so much for having me on. I so
Thank you so much, Brianne. It was really wonderful speaking with you. All right, until I come your way again next time, Thrivers, keep thriving. Bye for now.